Good afternoon. My name is Court Johnson, and I'm VP of Growth at AtScale. Today we have Dave Mariani, AtScale's Chief Strategy Officer, providing a demonstration of how the largest healthcare companies in the world rely on AtScale to modernize their analytics infrastructure. For those new to AtScale, we're a virtual data warehouse. Our customers span across all major verticals and include the likes of JPMC, Wells Fargo, TD Bank, Toyota, Wayfair, the Home Depot, and Kohl's. In today's presentation, we're going to speak specifically about the ways in which our healthcare customers rely on AtScale to accomplish their analytics initiatives. In this demo, we'll cover how AtScale can leverage a high-scale cloud data warehouse like Google BigQuery, how AtScale can deliver you interactive queries on a 100 million row Medicare dataset, how AtScale's OLAP engine can deliver multi-pass calculations like per member per month, time intelligence, and semi-additive metrics at scale, and how AtScale provides a live connection with the BI tools of your choice, including Excel. If you have any specific questions, please enter them into the question section of the webinar. If we don't have a chance to answer your question on this demo, we'll make sure to follow up with you individually. So with that, Dave, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Court. Okay, everybody. So today we're going to go really fast because we only have half an hour. And if you have any follow-ups, please contact us, and we'll of course take you through at a more reasonable pace. So I'm going to cover a couple slides to show you what the architecture is, and then I'm going to launch into a live demo. So as Court mentioned, we are a virtual data warehouse. That means we're going to deliver one single data API that's secure and governed, that's backed by a full multi-dimensional database, multi-dimensional cubes. And that means that you can calculate anything you want server-side at scale to handle all your complex business calculations. You also take advantage of the fact that you get a universal semantic layer. That means everybody's speaking the same language, but still able to use their BI tools of choice. And you're able to use your data platforms of choice. In healthcare, these are some of the value propositions we provide to our customers. A lot of our customers are looking to move to the cloud. We allow them to move to the cloud without having to rewrite their applications or retrain all their downstream analytics users. We have the ability to handle data from 10,000 feet to raw data on the ground. That means everything from a procedure to a claim is able to be queried in 5 seconds or less. You'll see that today. We also are able to provide a wide scope of use cases, from internal use cases with your business analysts and your data scientists to your external providers and users who need access to your data to better interact with your business and your services. We're full OLAP at scale. That means per member per month, time shifting, non-distinct measures, all the distinct measures, all the kinds of calculations that we require for you to run the business. We are able to deliver those at scale. And then finally, any BI tool can connect to AtScale with a live connection. So gone are the days of data extracts, gone are the days of having to move data. We're going to give you a live connection to the data, which means as soon as the data is updated, it's at your fingertips, whether that's be in a tool like Tableau or a spreadsheet like Excel, all live. Lots of customers use AtScale, especially in the healthcare vertical that we'll be covering today. We're looking to modernize their data stacks. That means moving from a data warehouse to a data lake, or moving from on-prem to the cloud. And AtScale was able to give them that with the least disruption to the business possible. Cigna, for example, needed OLAP to compute per member per month. Coming off of a SQL Server Analysis Services cube that wasn't scaling for them, they were able to migrate to AtScale, preserve that same use case, that same OLAP, the same per member per month, same dashboards, but at much higher scale, obviously, all on a data lake and all without disruption. Blue Cross Blue Shield was looking to modernize their legacy reporting environment. and manage their service utilization across their network. Needed to do that at scale with granular atomic data. Home Depot was looking to provide, continue to provide Excel to their internal users and their partners, their suppliers, as users, and we're looking to scale up their analysis services database to be able to handle the scale so that suppliers could access and manage inventory at the SKU level. We allowed them to do that. And BASF was looking to modernize their stack, combine on-prem with the cloud, with a single source of truth and consistent security and governance across everything. And AtScale delivered that. So unlike, if you look on the left-hand side, the AtScale really grew out of my experience at Yahoo. When this was my environment at Yahoo, multiple data warehouses built on Oracle. We invented Hadoop when I was there. We created a data lake, but lots of data chaos, all data movement, no way to access the data lake through all these different BI tools, having to produce data extracts for the business, which meant they were all calculating the core metrics of the business, impressions, and page views, all in their own ways, in their own tools, with no single source of truth. What I would have loved to have at Yahoo, and that we had to build at AtScale, was a single universal semantic layer, a single virtual data warehouse that lets users use any tool and BI tool of choice or AI platform of choice, but they're going to talk the same language. They're going to talk with the same security and governance rules, and they're going to be able to talk to any data store, whether it's a data warehouse that's legacy, whether it's a modern data warehouse in the cloud, like Google BigQuery or Snowflake, or whether it's a data lake on-prem like Hadoop, or a data lake in the cloud like S3. AtScale works like this. We have a number of different components, a very thin install on a single server, a cluster for HA purposes. But we intercept all queries coming from the business, whether they be through BI tools, AI platforms, or custom applications. You can speak SQL or OLAP or REST with us. So we got you covered on any way you want to talk, whether it's tabular through SQL, whether it's fully multidimensional like Excel or Cognos may use, or whether it's an application that you want to build and have the same semantics for your customers and internal users. I'm going to show you today Design Center. Design Center is how we build this semantic layer, and I'll show you how we do that. It's all powered by a full scale-out calculation engine that's based on an analysis services MDX spec. That means you get full scale and full compute calculations, multi-pass calculations, but it's going to work on your big data. I'm going to show you how the adaptive cache works and how we manage and create intelligent aggregates on the data platforms down here that you see without data movement. That means we're going to make your data warehouse, your data lake, and your cloud data warehouses and data lakes work much more efficiently, work less, but all providing the same atomic granular data to the business that they're asking for. Security and audit trails are key with AtScale. That means that because we don't move data, that means you're securing data at rest on your data platforms, and we're going to respect and inherit all those security rules. At the same time, we're going to add additional layers of security on top of our virtual cubes, including perspectives, which allow you to turn off and on attributes and metrics depending on different users and groups' rights. We're going to give you cell-level security so that you can provide real runtime filters to be able to restrict data access, whether it's data in a region or whether it's data for a partner. You'll be able to make sure that only people who can see the data they're supposed to see will see the data they're supposed to see. And then finally, object level security. So you can define in the model itself and in AtScale exactly who can reuse a dimension and a dimension or a data set. So you can provide reuse, but reuse with safety. So of course, tons of different reasons why OLAP matters. and it matters more than you think. If you want to compare this month versus last month, that's an OLAP calculation. If, of course, you're in healthcare, you know about per member per month, that is a OLAP calculation. If you want to use a store versus region, or a region versus corporate, that's a multi-level metric, that is OLAP. Today in my demo, I'm going to take you through really quickly. I'm going to do a two-stepper here. I'm going to first become an act and wear the hat as a data owner. That data owner, I'm going to create a virtual cube before your eyes on a Medicare data set. I'm going to publish that cube, and then I'm going to query that cube as a business analyst using Tableau and Excel. So let's get going. First of all, Design Center. Let's start with where we're going to finish. We're going to be using today this is from a government site, CMS. We're going to use the Physician Supplier Procedure Summary, or PSPS for short. This is a data set that's a real data set, and it covers data from 2010 to 2017. So 7 years worth of data. It's all coded with the HCPCS, Healthcare Common Procedure Coding System, and has lots of really great data that ends up being pretty big data, over 100 million rows. And we're going to use this and explore this today to see how Medicare is being managed, and how procedures are being accessed by different carriers, and how they're priced by different localities and locations. Okay, so let's get going on the final cube. This is Design Center, and this is our canvas. What you see here in green are dimensions. What you see here in blue are what we call data sets. Dimensions are actually made of data sets. So if I look at my localities dimension, you can see I have hierarchies defined, and you can see it's based on a data set. What you see on the right is you see a preview. Here's my virtual cube, my PSPS cube. And you can see that I have dates, I have locations, locations have hierarchies. I'm going to build this all before your eyes right now. So let's get started. I'm going to go to my healthcare project, and I'm going to add a new cube, and I'm going to call this new cube Medicare, because I'm dealing with Medicare data here. Now I have my Medicare virtual cube. I'm going to enter my model, and I have my blank canvas for my Medicare cube. So let's start to bring some data in. So I'm going to go to my data sources. This is what AtScale can see. In this case, I'm running this all on Google BigQuery today. Of course, it can run on Hadoop, it can run on Snowflake, it can run on Teradata, you name it. It can run on anything that you have data platforms wise that we support. So I'm going to pull off of a procedures file. This is the table or the file in BigQuery where all the procedures and all the activities in the Medicare database have been encoded. So let's explore this data by double-clicking on our data set, and this will take us into our data set wrangler. So what I see here is I see all the raw data from that data set. What I'm going to do now, I can see that my year, for example, is it's just a number. So this is the way the data comes. So I'm not going to do any ETL to clean this up. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use AtScale. I can use these conversions and change and modify columns right here on the fly, or I can actually create and add new columns. And I'm going to add a year column, a year date column that's going to use a parse date function that comes built in to BigQuery in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and parse out my date and turn that year into a real date string, because my BI tool is going to like that better. I'm going to go ahead and cast that year field. You can see I've got some helpers here as a string. And I should be able to spell string right. That's the first test. And now I have my test MySQL, and it's good. So what I just did here is this just created a calculated column in AtScale speak That calculated column now will be part of my virtual data set. And you can see now I have real dates here that I have conversions for. That's great. Let's add another column. I'm going to add a record count calculation. That way I can see exactly how many records I'm dealing with. And for that, all I'm going to do is just put in a 1. And that's just going to be enough to create a record count for my procedures data set. So now I'm going to come back to my main canvas, and what I can see in my main canvas is that now I actually have my new calculations. So let's go ahead and add these calculations to my virtual cube. I'm going to start with record count, and I'm going to drag it into my measures pane. You can see I have a record count as the column name, and I'm actually going to put it into a folder in my virtual cube. So I'm just going to accept the defaults right now. And what you'll see here is that you'll see that I have my record count. Okay, that's my first measure. You also see that I have my year dimension, or my year calculation I just added. I'm going to add that as a dimension. Now that adds in AtScale as what we call a degenerate dimension. What that means is that we're not going to create a separate join and join back year and create a dimension table. We're going to do all that under the surface. So we're going to make BigQuery hum, because we're not going to make BigQuery do unnecessary joins. I'm going to go ahead and put my year. I'm going to actually call it year date, since that's the date version of my year field. And I'm actually going to put it into my dates folder like so. And now what I have, if I go to my preview, I now have 1 dimension, year, and 1 record. Well, that's no fun. Let's start adding some more data. So let's go back to my measures pane here, and let's go and let's start adding some of the interesting data. Well, it looks like I have some submitted charge amounts. So let's go ahead and add that as a measure. I'm going to go ahead and clean up that name, and I'm going to put it into my amounts folder. Okay, so now I have my submitted charges to Medicare. I'm also going to pull in my allowed charges. This is what Medicare actually was allowing and paid out. So I'm going to want to do that and look at that. I'm also going to put that into my amounts field. Let's keep going. What about our denied charges amounts? These are the amounts that Medicare said no to for claims. We're going to want to look at that. So let's put that into our virtual cube. And then we can also go in and add some additional counts. So there's some fields like our assigned count, our services count, our submitted count. We can go ahead and add those. I'll just add 1 for now, because we don't have much time. And now if I come to my virtual cube, there we have our counts. Now we have our amounts and our years. So that's not very interesting. Let's add some additional dimensions to our virtual cube. Actually, before we do that, let's actually add an additional calculation. So I think I'm going to want to look at denied charges, but not just the amounts. I'm going to want to create a ratio. So in AtScale, we can enter what we call calculated measures. These are our second pass kinds of calculations where I can actually use MDX. So let's call this, I don't know, denied charge rate. And let's write our MDX expression. Our MDX expression, well, we're going to look at our submitted charges and divide them. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong way around. We're going to take our denied charges, and then we're gonna weight them by our submitted charges. And we're going to make that a percent, because we wanted to look into the percent in our BI tool, and we're going to put this into our rates folder. So I can check that MDX. This is a very, very simple MDX statement, obviously, but there is a ton of things you can do with MDX, which includes how you would use and calculate a per member per month, all within this one little pane here. Super powerful and all done server side. So now I have my denied charges rate. So I'm going to come to my library now. My library allows me to reuse dimensions and data sets. And I'm going to choose, I'm going to pull on my canvas, I'm going to pull on some dimensions that I've created. I have my procedures dimension. I have my place of service dimension. I'm going to pull in my localities dimension. That's where all the procedures or all the claims were happened. And of course, my specialty codes, so I can see what my providers are doing and what their services are. So now to make these live, all I need to do is wire them up to my procedures data set. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go and take my HCPCS code and I'm going to link it up to my procedures dimension. And so now what I see is I have my procedures long and short description. That automatically came because I just connected it up to my raw data. Let's look at the place of service code and let's hook that up to my place of service. What do I see there? Now I see location and I see my place of service. We're not done yet. Let's hook up our provider specialty codes. And that's a hierarchy like you see down here. So let's go to my provider specialty codes and let's link that up. And now what I have is I have my providers and now I have a specialty hierarchy. It's a taxonomy, which is the leaf that rolls up into a supplier type. Now let's do a multi-key join here with localities. So let's first go to localities. First thing I have to do is hook up the carrier number. That's who the provider is. And you can see that this particular location hierarchy also requires a locality number in addition to the carrier number. So I'm going to go ahead and link that up using my pricing locality ID. And so now what I have is in my location, now I have a location hierarchy. So we were able to inherit that structure, that hierarchy, just by attaching it. And that's very easy to do and we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and publish. Publish means I'm going to make my new Medicare virtual cube available for query by all my query users. So let's go and you see now I have my Medicare virtual cube here and I'm going to connect with it using Tableau. So I'm going to now take the form of a business analyst or a data scientist and I'm now going to explore what my data owner just created for me in this semantic layer and this semantic model. So let's go ahead and there's my virtual cube called Medicare. This is what I just created right before your eyes. So let's go ahead and let's just start with record count and let's see what we're dealing with here. Well, like I mentioned, we have 103 million rows. So this is a pretty decent data set. If you stick around and come back in the next couple weeks, I'll show you our TPC DS model that runs against 265 billion rows in Snowflake, all with the same speed you're about to see here. Okay, let's go and let's start with our submitted charges. Let's see how much we're dealing with. And let's do that by year, which is our date dimension. So now all these queries are now running live. This is not a data extract. It's running live against our against Google BigQuery. And AtScale has seen this for the first time. So the adaptive cache is learning as we do this. So let's go ahead and look at what we're dealing with here. And this is how much we spend every year in Medicare. 2017, we spent $450 billion in Medicare. You can see that our costs have been rising over the years. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus in our denied charges amounts. So I'm going to add that to my visual and do a side by side. Now what I see here is that while our costs are rising, our denial rates are pretty constant. That means maybe we're being more lax in allowing for procedures and for claims to go through. So let's do a little exploration on that. So let's go and let's open a new sheet here. And let's go and now look at our new measure. Remember our denied charges rate, and we can see it's a %. And we can see that Medicare denies 9% of all claims being submitted. So let's see what that looks like by year by adding our year. And I can go ahead and double click on year. And we can see, look at it a bar, we can see that our denied rates are definitely dropping. So that's interesting. Why would that be? Let's go and let's double click on, let's see, place of service. Let's look at our place of service and see what we got going on there. And we'll see what that looks like in terms of place of service. And where this is where the procedures or the claims actually, where the services took place. And let's do it with a bubble chart. Well, that's not very interesting. Let's do it with a line chart. Okay, that's a whole lot of noise. What we can see here is that we have a lot of rates that are 100% because we're not dealing with large numbers here. So let's go ahead and make these bars sized based on the submitted charges, so we can see what's really meaningful here. And what we see here, let's go ahead and switch this out here. We can see that office looks like office service looks to be relatively large and seems to be the driver of most of our services. Okay, now we got that. Let's get going, and let's get going on choosing and exploring a little bit about what's happening in our office. And let's look at it by, oh boys, we really need to know something better about this. So just looking at office, I can look at procedures. And so if I go ahead and add the actual procedures that are happening in doctors' offices, we can see if I look at my bubble chart, that's not very interesting. We need more data here. We need more data. Looking at the procedure level, which is great that we can do that, is not good enough to really find any trends. We need more data in our model. So let's go back to the AtScale Design Center and let's add additional data to our virtual cube. Now, normally what this would take is a bunch of data engineering and you talking to your IT shop to come in and add more data to your ETL pipeline. I'm not going to do that. All I'm going to do is add in a services dimension and tie it up to my type of service, which I have in my cube here, just like so. And now I have my services dimension. And so now I can go ahead and republish this virtual cube. I can come back to Tableau. I'm going to, let's see, let's take out procedure. That was useless. Let's take out year. That's noise. And let's go ahead and watch this. I'm going to refresh my data source. Now watch what happens. Now I have services there. I'll go ahead and double click on services. And now what I'm doing is I'm now looking at my, my procedures by each service. And you can see I have diabetic shoes as a big denied, 100% denied claim rate. I'm going to go ahead and replace my my denied rates with charges so we can see the real scope of the business here. And there you have it. It's plain old office visits that really drive the denial rates. And if I look at that over time, I'm going to see that that's dropping over time in terms of denial rates, which is driving the reason why my costs may be rising and my denial rates are falling. What about Excel? Let's go and connect to Excel now and see that same data in Excel using our same virtual cube that we just created. What I need to do is use the right connection string. And I'll paste that in. And let's connect. There's my Medicare virtual cube, which now in Excel appears as a physical cube. So now what I can do is I can create a pivot chart which is a live connection. These are live pivot tables. And I can go ahead and look at my, my submitted claims of, amounts, for example, and look at that by my year. And just like I saw in Tableau, I'm going to get the same answer, same performance, all within with the same multidimensional model. So what happened? Let's go back to Design Center because I'm running out of time. I'm out of time, but I wanted to show you the adaptive cache at work. That query we just ran in Excel took a little over a second. Why did it only take a second? We actually intercepted that Excel query, which is an MDX query. We actually ran 2 outbound queries, one for the totals and one for the body. And what we ended up doing is we ended up using an AtScale adaptive cache aggregate. And what that automatically created, because we ran that query before, or that query type before in Tableau. So now AtScale has made that query super fast against 100 million rows. And and back to you, Court. That's it for the demo.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. There's a lot going on there. It's super impressive. So if anybody does have questions, I know there are a couple in the queue here that we're not going to be able to get to today, but if you do have questions, we will follow up with you directly, or feel free to reach out to us, and happy to start a dialogue. And with that, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to learn about AtScale today. Like I said, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us through the AtScale website, or you can use the email hi@atscale.com. For our next demo on June 13th, we'll be highlighting how AtScale solves specific analytics use cases for retailers, for customers like the Home Depot, Wayfair, and Kohl's. So with that, I want to thank everybody, and we'll see you next time.